Friends, I've gone back and forth when it comes to Chris Cuomo, whether or not he is a malicious bad faith actor or whether or not he is in fact Fredo and as dumb as the Republicans have been saying he was for a while. And I've come to the conclusion that I think it's both. I think he is both a bad faith actor, a liar, he maliciously spreads misinformation, and he's also stupid. And when it comes to the stupid part specifically, you'll see when this video plays, there is a certain part where you can tell he thinks that he did a really good job. You can tell he thinks he's nailing it, that he really gotcha. It's actually quite embarrassing, but let's go back to the beginning. So Chris Cuomo did a segment where he was talking about the protests at Columbia and cheering on the defunding from the federal government of Columbia University because of anti-Semitism on campus. First he lies. He's playing B-roll over and over again of the one time there was vandalism on Columbia, and that was last year. And the amazing part about it is the people that broke into the building and vandalized it already got held accountable. And at some point, somebody says, yeah, the people that actually did vandalism were already held accountable. He's like, not enough. It needs to be more carceral. It needs to be more vicious. What he's not going to tell you was that this was when the vandalism happened, when they took over Hamilton Hall and renamed it Hinds Hall. Who's Hind, you might ask? Hind was the little girl that was trapped in a car with her dead family, and when paramedics came to save her, the IOF not only killed the paramedics, but after they killed the paramedics, they opened fire on her with a tank over 300 times. But tell me again how this was actually about anti-Semitism, you lying piece of shit. Because really what it comes down to is they don't want protests. But that's all he can do is play that B-roll over and over again because they, by and large, first of all, they have not been violent. The only violence that has happened at these protests have been the police against the student protesters and Zionists who came to infiltrate it and assaulted protesters with poles and shit in California. The Columbia protests in New York have not been violent. He's making it up. Again, the only violence is the cops assaulting the students, which you'll see in the B-roll. That's why he can never show any video of it or any evidence. They just say it over and over in the hopes that you'll believe their propaganda. Just like when he makes the claims of anti-Semitism. They're anti-Semitic. Evidence? No, there's no evidence. They're making it up. The protests are against the genocide in Gaza. The protests are against Columbia being invested in the state of Israel and their universities and the students wanting them to divest from apartheid. No different than student activists that protested during South Africa's apartheid. But he's demonizing them and he's lying on them because he knows that the only way to get people to turn against them is if he says they're violent and anti-Semitic while not being able to provide a shred of evidence as to why it's anti-Semitic. Because he has no evidence. He's lying. So let's get into the cringe video.
Left taking the side of anti-Semitic protesters at Columbia University? Are you serious? This is another egregious example of them holding on to a cancerous aspect
I need you to
of their
provide
campaigns.
a shred of evidence.
The Trump administration announced today that they're yanking $400 million in federal grants and contracts to Columbia University, giving the school's continued inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish...
The way he just lies so casually is amazing. Again, all he can show is B-roll of cops assaulting them. When he says persistent harassment of Jewish students, does he mean the cops that are assaulting the Jewish pro-Palestine students? Again, you guys need to ask yourself these questions. Why is it that they can't come up with any evidence for this so-called anti-Semitism that's happening? And when you ask them, be specific. What do you mean? They're like, wearing a keffiyeh.
And of peaceful protesters.
Of course, he doesn't care about
those things. Well, first of all, the protests at Columbia weren't just peaceful. They weren't. They were violent. They were
against the students.
They were anti-Semitic. And the handling of the protest by Columbia sucked. Why should I pay for Columbia University?
Oh, now you're concerned about where your tax dollars go.
Why should I subsidize a university with a $15 million...
Why should I pay for Israel's genocide?
Why should I subsidize a university...
Why should I subsidize their bombs, bitch? Why should I pay for Columbia? Good question. I'm really glad that you're starting to ask where your tax dollars are going because I would like to know why the fuck I have to pay for their slaughter, okay? This next part is the part where he goes full Fredo. This is the part I was telling you guys at the beginning where he thinks that he really nails it. He's like, oh yeah? You think you're standing up for the oppressed? Yeah. Okay, just... Also, you'll see I had to flip the camera when I was recording it because he starts showing very graphic footage I can't show on here from Syria because... Now he cares about showing you violent footage from war zones. Yeah. When it came to the genocide in Gaza and all the children that were getting blown up on a daily basis that we all saw online, He didn't want to show that. But now that it's Syria, now he thinks that you need to see the horrors of war.
It's about standing up for the oppressed. Is it?
He thinks
Is it? Well, then tell me this.
He's like, you're not
If
ready
that's
for
what
this
you're doing,
checkmate.
is standing up for the oppressed. Okay? And that these people represent those who care about the oppressed. Why haven't I heard a damn word out of the same people about what's happening in Syria?
You got
And
us.
those Syrian 134 Alawite civilians executed by Syrian security forces in revenge attacks. Why does the left only want to protect the Muslim minority when it's against the Jews? Well, if Colombia is about just going after the oppressed, where are you on the Alawites? Where are you on the Uyghurs?
Not the
in China?
Uyghurs.
It's not just about protecting the oppressed. It's about a hand-picked jihad of your own that you use in the campaign, and it's got to stop. The video of at least 24 dead bodies stacked up. I'm done not showing you the reality of these wars.
Now he
You
does.
do need to see it.
Oh, now
I
he
don't
wants
care
you
if
to
you get
see it.
triggered. I don't care if it's hard to watch.
You don't say. You know, there are a few things as annoying as when someone pretends like they're doing something brave when what they're doing is mainstream. You're not brave for being like, you need to see what's happening in Syria as you hide what's happening in Palestine. It's very easy for you to pretend to be brave and condemn Syria and China, both of which are adversaries to the U.S. Not as easy when it's our ally that bribes our entire government not to criticize them. I don't know, what do you guys think? Is he malicious, really fucking stupid, or both? What about the Uyghurs? Are we in charge? Do we fund the Chinese? Are we an active part of that? Are we actively funding Syria's ruling security forces? Again, he's so full of shit. He's like, people die. You need to see it. I don't care if you get triggered. That's really funny because where was that energy when all the Palestinians were getting murdered on screen? You're a propagandist, brah. And you think that we don't see what you're doing, but people see what you're doing. This guy's really out here trying to talk about morals and what's right. And then he really brought Alan Dershowitz on to talk about it. Yeah, I'm serious. Yes, Alan Dershowitz, the Jeffrey Epstein Alan Dershowitz. He brought him out to have a debate about the Columbia funding with another Zionist.
It ain't the way I wanted it. I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart and I want respect.
This always is my favorite live footage of Chris Cuomo. But back to his idiotic bad faith argument that he thinks that he's making. Last time I checked, we are not funding, okay, with our American tax dollars, an active genocide and occupation. See, that's the thing they never want to talk about. You will never hear him mention that. The Israeli regime is occupying illegally the Palestinians. The Palestinians in Gaza live in a concentration camp. The Palestinians in the occupied West Bank are terrorized day in and day out by the IOF, and their houses regularly stolen, their children regularly arrested, tried in military courts, and then put in prisons. 12-year-olds. That's what they don't want to talk about. That's really inconvenient. You know, it's easy to just go, oh, you just hate the Jews. That's why you're doing it. This is what he doesn't want to talk about. Either because, again, he's bad faith and malicious and or just fucking stupid and doesn't understand what is actually happening at Columbia and at these student protests. They want them, just like during South Africa's apartheid, to divest from the Israeli regime. And what they're protesting has absolutely nothing to do with Jewish people. That is why a bunch of Jewish student organizations are protesting alongside them. They are protesting against the United States funding of Israel's genocide. He doesn't want to talk about investments that these schools have in the Israeli regime. He doesn't want to talk about all the money that we give them for bombs to drop on Palestinian children and grandma's heads. He doesn't want to talk about the cover we run for their human rights abuses. He doesn't want to talk about the fact that we shield their war criminals and have shielded their war crimes for decades in the UN. He doesn't want to talk about any of that. No, that's super inconvenient. It's very convenient to just say, oh, they're just doing it because they hate Jewish people. I'm very smart. He's Fredo. and a liar. But I'm not really that surprised considering that his also Zionist shill brother is going to be helping represent Netanyahu in his war crimes case at the ICC. But you're right, Fredo. Let's talk about the Uyghurs in China, a country that we don't control and we don't fund. They love to pretend that the difference is the fucking funding and the allyship. Like, that's the thing that they want you to ignore. That's how it's different. And people of conscience don't really like their tax dollars going to murder women and children, keep an entire population in a cage with no way to escape, and the ethnic cleansing of an entire population. Why are you singling out Israel? Because that's where the fuck our money is going. They want to be cringe pieces of evil shit. They can do all that all they want, but they shouldn't be doing it with my tax dollars. You understand, Chris. I'm sure you understand. You were very offended. Your tax dollars are going to Colombia. How about this? If they want to continue their ethnic cleansing and genocide, they do so with their own money. And that's what maybe he's too stupid to understand. The reason why people are mad is because we all understand that they wouldn't be able to do this without our money and arms. And the most embarrassing part about this is that he has been to the Middle East. Like, you should understand this. Are you really that fucking dumb? Like, are you really that dense? Or are you just a fucking bad faith liar? Either way, it's not a good look. Not that you care about things being a bad look hanging out with Alan Dershowitz. Anyway, God bless those student protesters. Scumbag smear merchants like this are going to continue to lie. Incorporate in mainstream media, that is their job. Support the student protesters and understand this clown is not a journalist. That's why he's cheering on cracking down on First Amendment rights.